Welcome. Today we're going to be doing a speed run. I'm not sure what the goal is. It might be around 2000, but it's going to be a Blitz speed run, and I'm going to try my best to make it educational. That is the hope and the goal, so hopefully we don't lose the first game. Very creative title by me. Twitch less speed, not go. No provisionals, so it's going to be a long climb, and we'll just kind of see how many games I played today, how it kind of goes, and just hope for the best. So let's start the first game. Alrighty, our first game. This is so cool. I've never done a speedrun before, so this is gonna be interesting. I can kind of play whatever I want. Let's start with a Scandinavian. Let's see how they'll respond. Ooh, E5, alright, let's go here. Alright, go E6, develop our knight. Oh wait, why do I not have arrows enabled? Let me enable arrows. Hold on. Okay, so he goes with this idea. Let's grab this pawn. Usually you want to go C3 and kind of connect here. So if takes, I think we can win a free pawn. If bishop b5, we have bishop d7. Alright, bishop f4, we can just drop it back. Alright, here, let's just continue development. Go with bishop d6, kind of trade off. You want to play for the center here, so let's try to get a structure like this. Alright, queen f3, let's go e5. Just have this nice center here, threatening to have a nice fork. He's playing pretty well, to be honest. Just bring our bishop out, bring our rooks in. Let's play e4, connect our pawns here. I can go for c5, bishop c6, d4, and just keep advancing these pawns. Don't want to overextend them, but alright, let's go here. Alright, so here he is threatening to take this pawn, because if I take back, there's queen takes, and it's a pin, so he'll just win a pawn. Yeah, I'll go queen to e5. Just kind of get out of the pin there, probably bishop c6, go for d4. Alright, so here he drops a piece. First blunder of the game. I don't count the pawn. Alright, first dub, let's keep going. Go for d4 here. I wonder how many of them open with d4. Let's go e3 here. Queen's gambit accepted, just try to grab this pawn. Okay, knight c3, knight f3, castle. Just develop your pieces to the center and castle. Okay, he goes there. I could do some cheese here, but I don't think it's, let's not do that. Let's just play normal. Alright, so this move is not that great, because when I take, his structure gets pretty damaged here. Double pawns, his bishop's gonna have a hard time moving. So let's try to take advantage of that. Let's throw in, we could give a check here. And after g6, we could put our queen on e5. We could also put our queen on b5 and have a fork. Let's put our queen here. Attack the rook moves. We take this pawn, attack the rook again. Okay, so it puts his rook on g7, so now this bishop is just really stuck. So now we can bring our knight into the game. Probably put it on e5 or g5. Alright, so now we can move it. Let's move it to e5. I assume probably rook f6 will happen. Yep. We can put our queen on g8. Just keep this pin here. Bring our bishop into the game. We have enough time to just castle if we want. Alright, queen to d5. That's unfortunately a Bota's gambit. Always gotta double check before you move your piece to a certain square. Are you moving it to a safe square? Check around the entire board. Alright, you take the dub. Next one. Another queen's gambit accepted. Alrighty. Okay, let's grab this pawn. Knight to a5, right? Just drop it back. Knight in the corner doesn't have too much of a future unless he moves back. So usually, knights on the rim are grim. Gotta be careful about that. Alright, let's go knight c3. Okay, put a knight here. Just castle. And now you see this knight is just pretty much out of the game right now. I can push e4, just kind of take control of the center. My knights are in the center. Everything is fine. Let us push our pawn up. Just attack the knight. Takes. Okay, so I don't want to give up my bishop for this knight. So I'm just going to drop it back to b1. And this is a very nice position for my bishops. And now both his knights are not doing too much. I could play a3, just pressure this knight. Has to go back to a6, I can go b4. Threatening b5, forking both the knights. That is the plan. Okay, so here he decides to give it up, so we'll take... we can just put our knight in the center of the board. Okay, he takes back. Just take the bishop. When you're at material, feel free to just trade. You can go queen b3, threaten the knights. Alright, he blunders this piece. Okay, now we just win this pawn. Gotta be careful of pushing your pawn way too far too early. If it doesn't have protection, then it's just gonna be taken pretty quickly. Put our bishop over here. They're honestly playing well, ELO. Oh, okay. Spoke too soon. That's a free queen. He plays d4. Okay, he goes for knight c3. We'll go here. So this is, in my opinion, a pretty passive setup. Usually with d4 setups, you want the pawn to go on c3 or c4, and then the knight comes behind it, so you get more space. And usually with e3, he's just kind of blocking in his bishop. So I'm gonna go for a fianchetto. Kind of feeling that. Let's go for that. So a move like this, he's kind of hoping for something, but this knight doesn't really have a threat. So I can just kick it out. And he kind of has to just go back. So he's moving one of his pieces multiple times in the opening without kind of developing. And that's not quite a good strategy. So just put a knight here. He goes for this f4 idea. We can put our knight on e4. He could take on d5 if he wanted. But I had knight takes e5. If pawn takes, I could probably go e6. Throw in some queen h4 ideas. Put our knight on f6. So now he's starting to take this pawn. So I'm gonna just go e6. I'm playing a little bit passive because this bishop is not doing too good. But I can always play b6, bishop b7. Try to get it to a better square here. Bishop b4. Man, these guys are underrated. My goodness. Might have to kick it out probably here or here. Alright, let's kick the first bishop out. Let's put our knight here. So now we're threatening to take. Okay, he sacks a knight here. I don't see the follow-up, so we're just gonna take back. Okay, so here, let's put our pawn here, threatening to go b5 and just kick that bishop back. So now we're at material. We can just feel free to trade pieces off. Okay, puts his bishop back there. I could play a4, but I just kind of help direct his bishop to where he wants to be anyways, because he wants to threaten that pawn. c5. Kind of pick apart at his structure right here. Try to get in. We can put our queen on c7. Threaten to take this pawn back. I don't think he can defend it. If he takes, then we're fine. We're happy if he takes. Opens up our bishop. Okay, he goes c4. Let's just grab his pawn. Takes back, take here, threatening the bishop. Just realized how slow the speedrun is actually going to be. If my goal is to get to 2000 at some point, that's quite the journey. He decides to castle. We can put a bishop on a6 and try to trade. Alright, let's plant our bishop on d3. With our bishop on d3, it's very solid defended by this pawn, just controlling all these squares. Can threaten to take this pawn, can threaten to take this pawn. Everything's looking pretty good. Alright, let's just grab this. Yeah, I could have taken, I just wanted to develop a little bit, get on a good square, just cut off any path of entrance he might have had. Because we're already at materials, so. Okay, now we take. And just put our rook in the game. And you should be flagging. GG's. Another e4. Let's go for a caro. Let's try that out. I'm gonna be playing some stuff I also am not too familiar with early on the speedrun, because why not? Bring our bishop out before we go e6. So it's not stuck on c8 there. If I'm playing with this setup, the goal is to play c5 at some point to bring my knight into the game. He goes for c4 early. Let's put my knight on d7. Put our knight here first. Okay, let's bring our knight out here. Threatening the bishop, opening up our bishop. Have to be careful about our bishop too. It's a little blocked in. It can only go forward. So I think he goes for that. So that's just a free pawn though. I could take here. I could take here. I'm probably going to take here. It's probably better. Just win this pawn. Have a pin and we're still learning to take here. So I could take this. So if I take, I win a knight. And if they take back, I win the bishop. If I take the knight, they take my queen. Then I take their queen. And if they take my bishop, I take their bishop back. And now I'm up a piece. So another kind of classic puzzle rush 101 there. You kind of remove the defender of their piece and you end up winning the same amount of material back anyway. Okay, now again, we can kind of do our same thing, just develop, start trading off pieces off the board because we're up material. All right, let's take. So now when they take back, our rook is open. So this pawn is kind of a decorative piece. I like to call it decorative because I can take here. They can't take us back because of this pin. And now we're also starting to take the pawn. Castle, king safety still. Bring our rook over here, just trade them off. Put our knight here. Takes helps us trade off another piece, which is the goal when you are up material. Okay, he goes a3. Can just drop our bishop back. Let's trade. Trade again. Now 2 knights versus the bishop. Knight back. So now he just ends up losing another piece instead. And take all the pawns and it should be game. Alright, so again we have this kind of setup here with this d4. He's not really getting space because he's not moving this pawn before the knight. Let's do something like this. Bring our bishop out in this manner. Alright, so he goes e4. This should be a free pawn here. Can bring our bishop out. They go bishop c4. We can play e6. Just stop any funny business on this pawn on f7. He goes d5, which I believe is another free pawn. I'm gonna take with the knight here. If he takes back, I'm gonna take back with the queen. Queen to h5. Okay, so he's starting to checkmate me. And he's starting to take my bishop, so gotta defend both. I could just play g6, just kind of kick the queen out there. Now we can bring our bishop and fianchetto at the same time while we kick the queen out. So he's losing some tempo, moving the queen around. So always gotta check when you move to a square, is it a safe square? If you ask yourself that, you see my pawn is right here. So we just swing the queen and we get the dub. Okay, get some d4 again. What is he gonna play? Is he gonna go for d5? So this seems very common, this knight c6, knight c3 moves without moving the c pawns out. Let's go here. So again, we kind of have the same structure going on. Let's not take and let them open up their bishop. Let's just move our knight out. Okay, he takes, we'll take. I don't like giving it up though. There's a stereotype that double pawns try to avoid them and such. They're not always bad, and in fact here they're pretty good. They just help solidify my center. But playing bishop b4, he traded off his good bishop, and now he's stuck with this bishop over here that can't really come out because of the pawns. So I might just annoy him a little bit, play this move bishop a3 so he can't castle because he got rid of his dark square bishop. The quickest way if he wants to is probably just knight e7 and then he can castle, but then he puts his knight on a square that's honestly probably more optimal than the square it's on now. But we'll see if he finds it. He goes knight to e4, threatening my pawn here. So let's just play queen c2. Alright, he goes with the move a6, which I'm not sure does much that I see. I'm probably going to just go bishop d3, pressure this knight here. And now let's get our king to safety. Okay, he plays the move b5. Now we can take it. And if they take, our bishop is exposed, but we could also just take it back, threatening their knight. So let's take here. They can take, but then we'll take check and then we've won a pawn. Okay, they don't do that. So now we could just defend our bishop, or we can just trade. Let's trade this off. If they take, we'll put our bishop on b4. Again, still stopping them from castling. Now it's even harder to castle unless they play knight d6. And now we also open up the pathway for our passed pawn. So when you have a passed pawn, push him. So that's going to be the goal, to eventually push this pawn all the way up the board. Alright, so he did move his knight back. He's really trying to castle. Let's keep the pressure on him. So I don't want him to castle again yet. So let's put him on an e5, pressure this bishop. They could just play bishop b5, and then we'll move a rook and let him castle. But just want to keep the pressure on our opponent, because you never know what move they might play. So yeah, that's why you always keep the tension. You never know what your opponent will do. He goes here, he's not able to castle anymore, and he drops a piece. So we'll take those. And now again, we're up quite a bit of material, just trade everything off. This move is kind of looks intimidating, but has no threat. We'll just take over here. Okay, he doesn't take, we'll take that. Take here. Can we checkmate before defending our checkmate threat? Let's see. King c8, queen a6. It might not be checkmate, but it's close. Okay, just take this pawn here. Now we have checkmate. Let's go for another Scandi. Okay, bring our queen back. Let's go for the c6 line. Okay, let's bring our bishop out. Push our pawn up, develop, and castle. He's also developing well. His knights are in the center. He developed his bishops, he castled, so he's doing pretty good too. Okay, wouldn't have given that up. I do have the bishop pair now. He could play knight e4 if he wanted. He doesn't. He goes queen c1, which I'm not sure what his idea is. So I'm just going to drop my queen back because I don't want to give up my bishop pair if he plays knight e4. I'm going to drop my bishop back. Again, I've seen this move for the second time today. It doesn't do anything. He could try to go back here, but we'll just drop our bishop back. Let's drop our bishop back. Push our pawn up next. Okay, he goes f3. He has this structure here. He's kind of opened up this critical square for my queen to just sit on. Now we can give up the bishop pair because we win this pawn out of it. Let's put our knight here. Bring our knight over there. Thankfully, he put the queen there, so now he has a defender for the mates. So we'll just put our queen back here. Don't want to trade yet. Okay, he puts his knight there. We can just trade off. Why not? Put our queen here. And you guys see he moved his bishop out to e2 on move 4, and that's kind of its future. It's still blocked in at the moment by everything. Let's just pop the d file open some more. Sacking a pawn, but we're trying to open up the d file and also capitalize on these weaknesses here. Put a rook on d4. Threatening this pawn first. He pushes it. Now we can take this, and now we have queen h4 check. Goes there, we have another check. King has to go back, and then we have this pin here, winning the queen. And now we just go for the checkmate at some point. And now we have a mate. Okay, so he moves this knight out without moving the pawn here, so I'm gonna take and try to mess with this knight in the center here. So I have a nice controlled center. Now develop our knights using basic principles, except we have a nice center and he does not. And he blocks in his bishop. So let's move our knight out. I could just play bishop e3. Could also just take, to be honest. We'll just take, why not? Castle, king safety. Put our bishop on g5, threatening to pin the knight. Drop it back. Okay, so I believe he lets us go for that. And he could play g5, technically. Just kind of opening up the king there. Alright, he goes g6 instead. So now we can just take, plant our bishop on f6, defending the pawn. Wide open king side. Goes certainly like queen d2, takes and go for a quick mate there. Alright, let's go here. And I think I can just pre-move this. Alrighty, over 600. First milestone accomplished. Alright, another d4. Ooh, he goes for the England gambit. We shall accept that. You gonna win the pawn back with queen e7? He does. He knows theory, alright. So takes, we're gonna go e4 and just have a pretty nice center. While black kind of inconveniences his position, puts his queen in the way, and spends these first few moves just winning a pawn back while we have a nice center. That's why the England gambit, there's a joke that it's refuted on move 2. Mainly just because you really inconvenience your position just to get a pawn back that you don't even have to give up in the first place. I'm not saying I have a perfect record against the England gambit against personal level, but I don't mind playing against it. It's not the worst thing. Just push our pawn up here just to stop bishop g4 preemptively. King safety is up next, and like, how's he gonna get his bishop out? He could fianchetto, take an extra 2 moves there. We could take back with the pawn too. I'm gonna do that. That looks pretty interesting. Then if we castle, we can just play for this center here. Alright, let's castle. King to safety. Rook over. Gonna go d4 at some point. Castle's queen side. Alrighty. That looks fun. Let's start the attack. Gonna go take this pawn here. Probably king b8. Now I'm gonna play knight to d4. Maybe go knight b5 or knight c6 check. Just kind of try to capitalize on these light squares and try to... Oh, let's not pre-move again. So he drops his knight back down. We could play knight f5, just kind of throwing the queen here on a good square. Really trying to make use of this king side here and make something happen quick. But I think it's just going to be... Let's go here. Takes. He has to take by force. And then unfortunately his light squares are on his king just become very weak. Can push this pawn up, a4, a5. With my rook here, my goal is to just kind of open up the file, especially since his king is on that side. I could go for knight b5, but then he could just play a6. Like if I go knight b5, he could just play a6 and kick me out. So I didn't want to go for that so soon. So he's trying to start an attack, but I'm not quite worried about that. So I'm just gonna go a4 here, go for a5, and just try to take and go for this mate here. Honestly, not too worried about that pawn. Just not even gonna respond to the move. Okay, he decides to resign. But yeah, my goal is to just take here. He can't take because of the checkmate. Takes, he could take with the c pawn. But then I have knight b5 ideas, pressuring a7. And if takes with a knight, kind of the same idea. Why not knight to d5? I could play knight to d5. That also would have been fine. That also works, yeah. There's many ideas here that are pretty good for white. That's one of them. Could you push the pawn to a6? I could also do that. Yes, I could also do that. Okay, so he's going for a Slav. Does he know theory? He does. That's pretty good. Plus the bishop on g4. Let's go with e3. Just open up our bishop here. I believe this is the quiet Slav where you go with e3. Now just castle, king safety, of course. I'm not going to worry about that bishop yet. Let's just poke at his bishop here. Okay, let's take it back. I like this position for me. So he goes e5 again. Now I am tempted to play this bishop a3 shenanigans and give my next opponent a hard time about it. And I think I'm going to go for it because why not? But here, so they can't castle. Can't castle through check. I'm assuming they might go e4, which they will have a nice structure, but we're just gonna temporarily drop it back. We can always poke with f3, which might not look the best positionally, but at some point it could be played. We'll just see kind of what he does. We can also just play on the queen side here, go for that pawn. We can take, and the advantage of these double pawns is, let's say you take the pawn, they take back, then you can hit it again with the same pawn. So knight g8, I assume he wants to go knight to e7 in order to castle. I want to take advantage of this time when he's not castled and try to create some threats here so it doesn't seem like he has much time to castle. Let's start with just moving a rook here, threatening to take. He could just ignore what I'm doing and still castle, but I'll win the pawn, which is very good for me. I'm going to take first, and I'm going to go c4 again. Now, he can still play this, and I'm considering just taking. I could also take here, takes, and then take the pawn, and just win a clean pawn. Let's go for taking. Now, if he takes back, I'm going to go queen to c2, pressuring this pawn. He doesn't. So now we have a very nice pawn on d6. Have to be careful not to lose it. He's threatening to fork me here, so let's put our queen on b3, just threaten the knight. Okay, so he doesn't choose to defend it, so we just win a free piece. What I'm noticing is they play, honestly, very well for their ratings, but the minute they drop a piece, they kind of just drop the whole house. That's what I'm realizing. Yeah, like, I'm kind of realizing that trend. Alright, he goes e3, so kind of blocking his bishop early. It's not the worst if he goes like c4 or something. This move, I don't like. He's just kind of wasting time. I haven't even developed my bishop. I'm gonna go for a fiend shadow again. This move is very bad. Going f3 and h3 just completely weakens this diagonal. I'm gonna try to sneak in there early and see if he gives me an entrance. Should I go for some e5, queen h4 business? Let's see if he lets me. Okay, he doesn't do anything about it, so now we're swinging with the queen. He has to go king d2. He could play g3, then we just win the pawn. King d2, yep. Now we can go for something like this. Bishop h6, just pressure this e pawn here that's pinned. Okay, let's bring our bishop check. Don't want that king to hide. It's already come on the open. We want to make sure we keep the tension. So every move that we make, we want to make sure we're threatening the king in some way. If king b3, I might just go a5. Okay, he goes e4. Here I'm not even going to defend this bishop. I'm just going to take, because even if they take, I'm just going to take with a discovered check, and then I'll take the knight. So we'll win the material back anyways. So here he's giving me another piece to take. I'm going to go e3 check first, force the king onto b3, and then just snag this pawn here. Now the king is completely cut off. Now he's kind of closed off to this side. I mean, he can hide there if he wants. It's not the worst thing. Let's just bring your queen back. Kind of want to go b5 here. Let's play some funky chess over here. Put our queen here. The idea is to go queen a4 check. Just pick up the queen. Okay, put our queen here. Very classic. It's not classic to find the king on b3. Let's go queen d3, king here, queen c4, and then we have a mate. Can we pre-move it? Alrighty. Yeah, they're all kind of playing this. Alright, take. Oop. Had a mini blunder myself. Let's go here. Queenside castle. Alright, well now I'm just tempted to just swing my pieces at him. Let's go. Okay, let's not be barbaric. Trade off here. Put our knight on f6. Let's get our king to safety, and then we'll figure out what to do on the queen side. Let's go knight to e4. Let's go into a little late middle game over here. Wow, he doesn't. Okay, I could just take here. Let's play bishop versus knights. Put our queen on f6. Going for a cheap pin here. He does fall for it. It's kind of the main reason why I kept the bishop versus the knight. To kind of go for that there. Now we snag the queen. Should be a dub. Alright, let's take the center. He's given it to us. That's not such a great setup. Usually, so if he went bishop, if he moved his bishop to b7, this is actually like a thing. But if he goes c6, he just closes the diagonal. We'll just keep building in the center here. Now this bishop is just very bad. This is also, yeah, this is not a good setup for him. So just take all the space. I could go all in with this, but I'm not going to. Let's just play here. We could take and just go here. Let's go for that. We can go knight g5 here. Pressure this pawn. Backwards pawn. It's backwards because there's no pawns that can defend it. So let's attack it. He has a lot of weak scores. This is a weak pawn, which he gives. This is also a weak score that we could have made use of. So, a lot of weaknesses there. Alright, let's take back. Alright, let's take here. Just remove. I guess we could already take the pawn. But we grab this pawn here. And the idea is to go for the win as quick as possible now. So we can just start simply with this. Win the queen here. Check. We have a nice fork here. Win the knight. What's he going to play? Another accepted. They all seem to take when I play Queen's Gambit. The targets, so the end goal is 2,000, but for this specific, I assume he wanted bishop e7. I was like, wow, he's really bong clouding this game, huh? Okay. The Grob. Wow. These guys, Bonkod and the Grub, they're bolder than like the title players, man. Okay, I don't know what he's doing now, but okay, let's just go here. H4. All right, we're just gonna ignore whatever he's up to there. Just go for go here, pressure this pawn and this pawn at the same time. It's not a good square. Bishop's kind of like a pawn on e3 there. So now we can just take this pawn, threaten the knight. And we're also still threatening this pawn. I assume queen c1 is the only defense to defend both at the same time. Okay, so he just doesn't defend, so we'll take the knight. We can just take here. Queen takes, we will take the pawn. Okay, he goes there. We can give a check. So with king d1, we can just go queen c3. Defending our rook, threatening to trade. And if he doesn't trade queens, he gets mated. So kind of, he's forced to. Okay, now we just checkmate. Another d4 player. Haven't gone too many of them, I don't think. Or we have, but they kind of. I was expecting a lot more e4s. Okay, he knows theory. QGD. Nice QGD. Seems like a speedrunner as well. Or a sniper. He's playing well. He is playing well. Alright, let's put our bishop on e6. Bring our knight out. Alright, so goes e4. Obviously, gotta take it off. Don't want him to have a good center there. So let's trade it off. Replace our knight with f6. Replace our knight on f6 with another knight. Attack this bishop here. Now he has an isolated pawn that we can target. Now, when you are playing against the isolated pawn, the more pieces you trade off, the better it can be, because in an endgame this becomes a very weak target. And you also want to control the square in front of the isolated pawn, so they can't push it and trade it off, because then they're kind of trading off their kind of weakness. So those are kind of the two tips you want to take away when you're playing against an isolated pawn. And the opposite goes for if you have it. We can go queen b6 here. I'm going to put our rook on the d file. Okay, so he plays bishop e3, starting to play d5, so now I gotta get my queen out of the way. I'll put my queen on a5. I don't want to move it back because then he'll just move it up here again, so we'll just put on a5. We're gonna swing over if we really want to. He goes a3. I'm not worried about b4 if that's what he's going for, so we'll put our rook here. At b4, we'll just swing our queen over. Why not take on b2? If takes, I'm worried about rook b1. And if I take on a2, he takes on b7. And even though I technically got a pawn forward over there, the c pawn becomes disconnected and he enters my 7th rank, which I'm not too happy about. My queen is kind of stuck on a2. I don't quite want to trade, to be honest. I'm gonna put my queen on d5 here. Trying hard not to trade. So here, you always gotta count attackers versus defenders. He has one defender. I had 2 attackers, so I win the bishop. Alright, now we're just winning. Should be a clean game. Is he gonna accept it? Oh, he doesn't. Alright, we'll go for another one. Give me the center, please. Okay, and then he just blunders a piece. Around this level, I definitely recommend playing e6 before knight to f6, because I don't think it's suitable for beginners to play when their opponent's about to grab the center from them. Because this is an opening, it's definitely a legit opening, the Queen's Gambit declined martial defense, but you need to be able to play this well to get counterplay for the central pawns here. And clearly he didn't know what he was doing because he just blundered the knight. Sometimes I've seen people play knight f6, which is possible. I believe knight b6 is like one of the main ideas here with some knight c6 stuff. But anyways, I wouldn't recommend playing this in response to c4, because then you give your pawn the center, and when you don't know too much theory, it's very risky. So I would go e6 before knight f6, and just take back with the pawn, and just not worry about having to play against someone with a center. Double pawns, but we're up like a knight or something and a pawn. Multiple pieces, so we're chilling. King activity, still important in the endgame, even when you're up a lot of material. Now, all his pawns are ready to be swept. Go for another Scandi here. That's the second person that's done that. It is a thing. Let's go d4, put a dent in his plan to go d4 before he does. Go bishop g4. Pressure this pawn that's pinned here. Queen d7, threatening to take this pre-pawn. So here, I can still take this because his queen is not defended. So I exposed my queen, but if he takes, I take back with a knight. So I can just win a pawn here. Pretty classic. You see that trick when the opponent has a bishop on b5 as well. So we can play here, get the king out of castling, but then my knight's a bit iffy after knight h4. I guess I don't have to fear. Let's just give a check, why not? I'll just come here. It's alright. If he takes on b7, we can just put a rook there. So this is kind of a lesson of development. Like, I went for greed, which I can kind of get away with, but Ideally, you want to not do that to yourself. Go here, can take the pawn. Yeah, he's definitely strong. You got some counterplay for a minute there. Okay, now we can just this nice pin here. Oh, actually, if he takes here, I can go queen f4. Try to sneak a mate on him. It's not that sneaky, but let's do it anyways. Oh no, you get to save your bishop. No, he actually did. Okay. All right, GG. Are they gonna take two? Wow, everyone's accepting. Wow, I think I've only had like one person that didn't. Okay, bishop e6. I don't like that move too much. I'm gonna take and take. And now after I castle, for example, this pawn becomes pretty isolated and very weak. It's a very nice target. So h5. So he hasn't developed his pieces. He hasn't gotten his king to safety. And he's starting kind of a fluff attack because this doesn't do anything. So I'm gonna go queen to b3. Or let me go rook e1 first. Pressure this pawn. My idea is queen to b3 to kind of threaten this pawn and this pawn. I didn't go there immediately because I think he had queen to d5. So yeah, now I'm going to go queen to b3, threatening to take here and win the rook. And take this pawn here. Okay. Yep, cross for it. Now I win the queen. London system. Alrighty. Yeah, London's pretty good opening for beginners. Very solid. Don't have to know too much theory. You develop your pieces to the center, you castle, king safe. Okay, let me just trade off here. Alright, he exchanges it for the knight, which I don't know why he does that. So now he's kind of just opening up e5 for me. I open up my bishop, have a nice center here, so I'm pretty happy, and I have the bishop pair, so all is good here. And now we keep pushing, so we have e4, open up with a discovery, and we, whoops, that's not how the pawn moves. We win the bishop, which he doesn't see, so now we just win the queen again. Is he gonna take? Man, they all take. I don't know, it's just because they don't know what else to do and they think it's a free pawn or what. I mean, he might know theory very well, but should I go for that? I feel like that's just so bad for educational purposes. He's just gonna play knight f6, right? There's no chance, right? I mean, is there a chance he could take? Okay, let's just... You gotta have a little fun with it. He's probably just gonna play knight f6, but it was worth the try. Queen f5 check. I don't know the purpose of that move. Go bishop d2, just throwing the queen. Alright, so bishop g4. This move just loses a piece because now I take the queen, they take back, but then I take back with my knight. And we just win the bishop. And now we're up a piece. You always gotta calculate. Like, if you're gonna make a threat on your opponent, you have to understand that they have one move to do something. And example like this, if your queen doesn't have any defense, you kind of have to think through it. And it's always important, right? This is kind of how you start training your calculation, like back here. I want to play bishop g4 and attack the queen. You can't just see it as a trade, a queen for a queen. You have to think just at least just one move beyond that and realize my queen doesn't have any defense, but this queen has the pawn and the knight. So I could get a queen for a queen, but I just end up losing another piece. Go here and just trade off pieces, go for that conversion.